It's inevitable that at some point or another, every one of us will have been in a relationship where it felt as though we offered a great deal to the other person, but in the end, it didn't work out. This is something that can be quite disheartening for men. After she has broken up with you, cheated on you, or anything else has happened, the last question you typically ask is a self-reflective one in which you ask, why wasn't I worth the effort? What did I do wrong? It seems as though I've covered all bases for her, yet she's still not here. As we said before, or as I've said, and I think the majority of you agree with me, is that when you are the one that is making all of the effort and you are the one doing the chasing, you're the one fulfilling her desires, but in return, you are not getting very much in return. This is something that we've talked about before. The expectation is that she will comprehend and recognize what an incredible find you are, as well as what a fantastic guy you are, and that she will eventually come around to your point of view. The unfortunate reality is that this will never take place, because you haven't established clear boundaries regarding what you require from your partner in order to feel fulfilled. She will likely come to the conclusion that she is of a higher quality, or that she is the prize of the relationship quite soon after she realizes how much effort you are putting into the relationship. This occurs quite frequently when you are in a state in which it's called codependency, and it occurs when someone in a relationship places an excessive amount of value on their partner while placing insufficient value on themselves. However, you do this in order to maintain your relationship and, fingers crossed, make things work out for the best. Realizing that you have needs and certain ground rules and that you need to create them and establish them is the greatest way to sort of get out of that position. You need to realize that you have certain ground rules. It does not imply that they are required to be unreasonable, but it does imply that you are required to adhere to them. Therefore, if you state, this is what I need out of a relationship, and if at any point in time that is not being provided to you, then you need to go, or you need to make it clear that your needs are not being met. And if they aren't, then you need to go, and you need to make it clear that you are also a catch and that you are desirable. And if they aren't, then you need to make it clear that your needs. I was browsing Reddit when I came across an interesting post about this topic. It was written by a woman who, in the end, said the same thing. Why did they never bother with me when I wasn't worth it? But what struck me as particularly interesting about it was the fact that, in most cases, when a man makes this statement at the end of a romantic relationship, he will say something along the lines of, I did this for her, and I didn't ever tell her she couldn't have guy friends. I didn't ever say, no, you can't go out. Or she was out super late and didn't text me. I said I was upset, but I was understanding. And usually when things didn't go my way, I was surprised because I believe I had done everything right. An opposing viewpoint comes from a woman who asserts the same thing, but notes that the process through which she arrived to that realization was very different. It does not appear that she made any more effort or sacrifice in this regard. So please excuse me while I read this, and then we can have a brief discussion about it. I'm not suggesting that all women are the same way. Rather, I'm just stating that this one in particular has these thoughts. I find it interesting that in the end, it's not that she did too much and he didn't still desire her or respect her, but that in essence, she gave up, and when it turned out that it was better for him, that's when she had her moment of self-reflection. I find it interesting that in the end, it's not that she did. This is coming from a woman who is 34 years old, and the title of the post says, "My ex, a gentleman 37, got his act together after we divorced, and it infuriates me." She claims that her spouse and she were together for 10 years, married for 6 of those years, but did not have any children during that time. We diverged in our perspectives over time. That means that I reached adulthood, whereas he did not. He had the ambition to continue living like a youngster long into his 30s. There will be a halt placed there by me. Why, after dating for 4 years and finding out he was like this, would you marry him and stay with him for another 6? This is a mistake on her part, and it goes back to the fact that she may have given perhaps too much, and he did not appreciate it. She goes on in this manner. These past 2 or 3 years taken together have been a living hell. After his father passed suddenly, he began to put on a lot of weight and eventually lost his job. I'm planning to add one more stop at that location. To be fair, they were truly awful. Has he suddenly become a foul-mouthed person? In all likelihood not. He experienced weight growth. That does not represent a shift in his personality in any way. That just indicates that he did not maintain a healthy diet. Because he didn't exercise, he was getting increasingly unhealthy. He also lost his money because he was fired from his work. Therefore, all of a sudden, a lot of weight is on her, and in addition to that, she most likely no longer finds herself attracted to him. That's not a problem. I get it, and I do comprehend it, but let's look at it from the other angle. She wasn't coping with the loss of either her mother or her father very well, and as a result, she put on a lot of weight and got fired from her work. Yeah, dude, she was just miserable all the time, and either her mother or her father passed away. You ditched her, did you? Yeah, wouldn't it be obvious to everyone that he's a jerk? He left his wife, who had been through this terrible experience, and it was evident that she was having a very difficult time. She was gaining weight, she had lost her job, and as a result, he left her at a time when she was at her very lowest point. You could hear how this story would shift drastically in a short amount of time if this guy were speaking to a lady. From her perspective, you were being like a jerk by doing this now, and therefore she would tell you that. You know, look, I'd get it. I really do. You should know that things can change, and it's possible that she simply stopped loving him. Let's proceed with the reading and see what comes next. I made an effort to assist and encourage him. That's great for her, but you probably simply wallow in his own self-pity instead. After a while, he stopped helping out around the house. He wasted all of his spare time fooling around on the web and consuming drugs in his spare time. In order to contribute toward paying our bills, he was forced to sell his old trash car. Okay, so it seems like after 2 or 3 years, maybe she tried to help, maybe she didn't. I don't know. But he wasn't pulling her at his weight anymore, and she felt like, had enough of this by this point in time. This is something that is going to take place, and it might be a lot of work to essentially drag somebody along who isn't interested in it anymore. Given that she eventually admits, I'd had enough, I guess you could say that I can see things from her point of view. In 2015, we finalized our divorce, and since then, we have had virtually no communication with one another. It reached its conclusion. So let's get this straight. What exactly did everyone have a problem with on Friday? I just so happened to run into him downtown, and it's as if he's a totally new guy. He got rid of all the weight he had gained and even toned up a little bit in the process. He was dressed professionally in a fitted suit. When we were together, he only owned one suit that was too big for him, which he wore to funerals and weddings. And he had a good watch. He mentioned to me that he might have received hair plugs or anything else like that because the thinning of his hair wasn't as noticeable as it had been in the past. He mentioned to me that he had recently purchased a condo in the neighborhood that was within walking distance of his new job at a well-known technology company in our city. It would appear that he has recovered from being somewhat dejected, as seen by his statement that you should know that I'm not dating anyone right now. It's possible that I'll wish to go back there again eventually. So I'm going to better myself. I'm going to find a better career, and then I'm going to finally get back to my house and get my life in order. Yes, it's a clean slate for both of us. She for me, and I for her. I take it that this is a positive development. He has overcome the problem that he was having, and he has gone on. Again, she had the opportunity to ask, hey, are you interested in getting together at some point? Perhaps we could have a conversation or just hang around for a little while now. She didn't even bother going that route. It's obvious that a shrewd man would decline the offer. She claims that the time we spent together was brief and that he was courteous to me. Even more surprisingly, he expressed regret for the way our relationship had deteriorated and offered his best wishes for my future. Now that you've got it in your head, tell me why she can't be happy for him. You are aware that she finished. She stated that I would ultimately reach a point where I had enough, and in 2015, we divorced. She was the one who started it, she was the one who stopped it, and she was the one who chose to go her own way. Therefore, she is displeased with him today because he has improved himself. You may argue that she is disappointed that he did not improve himself while they were in a relationship together, but it was evident that he most likely had some recent scars at the time. I mean, this just happened to him, and depending on how close he was to his father, it could have been anywhere from 2 to 3 years. He worked on himself to become a better person, and he matured as a result. She goes on in this manner, it's been 4 days since I last saw him, and the truth is that the more I think about how I devoted 10 of the best years of my life to this man and received nothing in return, the angrier I get. When we split up, he did not have a lot of money, and we did not have any children together. I started from the very beginning. To restate, it seems as though I have gained nothing from it. There were no children born to me as a result of that. He never had very much cash on hand. However, it does not appear that he underwent any sort of personal transformation. She did not meet him and report that he was significantly nicer, friendlier, or no one at all after their encounter. The first thing you mentioned was how successful he is, and then you mentioned how good he looked. You abandoned him because he was unsuccessful, and he didn't look well, both of which were factors in your decision. Therefore, he's cleaned up his act, but the fact that he has done so upsets her. The intriguing aspect of this situation is that she claims that once we separated, I had to begin everything from scratch. And guess what? He did the same thing. When you left him, he was unemployed and looking for work. When you left him, he was still feeling a lot of grief over the loss of his father. To help with the payment of our bills, he even sold his old junk car. It seems as though the two of you got off to a clean slate. Despite this, I believe that you, the lady, were in a better position than he was because you did not suffer from depression. You were employed, but you made the decision to stop going to work there. It was his choice to withdraw from the situation. He was the one that you choose to abandon. He was broke and had no money to his name. He was without a vehicle of his own. He was down in the dumps. It would appear that you, as a woman, truly had the upper hand over him in this situation. You're the one who is currently upset because you are the one who is currently upset because during that period of time, he improved himself. I'd wager that the answer is not yes. Would you feel resentment toward him if, despite your achievements as a woman, he continued to have difficulty making ends meet? Would you feel resentment toward him if you were successful and he was successful at the same time? Almost certainly not. It would appear from what you've said that the only justification she has for being furious with him is the fact that he ended up doing well after the relationship. But the thing that she complains about the most is that my job is highly stressful and that I make less money now than I did 5 years ago. That is not his responsibility. That has absolutely nothing to do with him in any way, shape, or form. She claims that I live by myself and that money is once again scarce. It is not his concern. No fault of his own. You do realize that it's all your fault, right? You turned your back on it and went away. She told me that I've been having some intestine digestive issues and the doctors can't seem to pinpoint what's wrong with me. So now you're in a poor spot, which means you have medical concerns. She stated that I've been having some intestinal digestive issues. You're in a difficult financial situation, yet you left him while he was going through the same thing you were, and now he is doing well again, but you are not feeling well. You're angry at him now, aren't you? You now have some idea of how he would have felt when he was going through a difficult time and you were doing well and you abandoned him. It seems as though the tides have turned, even if only little. It seems like you're getting a little bit of just dessert here, but instead of congratulating him, instead of maybe evaluating his current situation, and instead of sitting down and saying, hey, tell me what you did, or if you don't mind, let's catch up a little bit, it sounds like you're getting a little bit of just dessert here. What helped you get out of your funk and how did you achieve it? How did you manage to get back on your feet after that? How did you manage to reach to this point? It's possible that you may have picked out some useful information, but instead, all she does is point the finger of blame at him for something that has nothing to do with her. Keep in mind that the reason for all of this is because she abandoned him. I think all I really want to know is why he couldn't have been nicer to me in that regard. Why did they never bother with me when I wasn't worth it? I am unable to provide an answer to that question. Nonetheless, while you and she were separated, something took place with her. Your life did not improve while his did, and once again, I find it intriguing that the why was I never worth it argument was never justified. The effort is typically made when the man believes that he has done everything he can for the relationship only for the woman to cheat or leave him. He thinks to himself, hey, I did all of these stuff and she walked away. But in reality, the guy was in a poor position, and the woman made the decision to walk away once more. But now she's sad because she walked away from something that ended up being beneficial for him, but detrimental for her. In other words, she regrets her decision. And once more, instead of stating what it was that bothered them about me. Maybe I was the one holding him back, or maybe I wasn't supporting him in the right way, or maybe I was just being selfish. I'm not claiming that she was, but there was a pause for thought there, and she could have been able to take anything away from it, or she could have picked his brain, or she might have found out how he had improved herself. On the other hand, the standard response is I abandoned him when he was down. I abandoned him when he was without financial means. During the time that he was having mental problems, I abandoned him. Now that we've worked things out, he's doing fantastic. However, I've been having health concerns and I'm suffering, and I've been having these problems. The answer is that she was the one who escaped the predicament. I just thought that this story that you are familiar with here was an interesting one. Because he hasn't had anything to do with her job, because he has nothing to do with her health, because he has nothing to do with where she is in life, but when he was left on his own, he bettered himself. He got over whatever was bothering him. Life goes on because at no point in here does she say, you know, that he was a bad person, or that he was mean, or that he was lazy. She just said, well, he wanted to live like he's still a teenager inside. Even though I'm in my 20s, I believe that all males have that desire. For this reason, we make time to enjoy our hobbies, play with our toys, and just goof off. In many respects, we are all still simply huge kids at heart. However, she never once implied that he was a nasty person, or that you were aware of the fact that he was a useless person. It's just that he wasn't in a good place and he was bringing me down, so I wanted to get away from him and start a new chapter in my life. But after that, he won't be able to bring me down anymore.